You know what keeps me awake at night? It's not the caffeine from my third espresso, though that doesn't help. It's the thought that somewhere in Washington, someone is making decisions that would make a mob boss blush with embarrassment. And today, folks, we need to talk about something that's going to make your blood boil faster than a kettle on high heat. Picture this. You're working 2 jobs, maybe 3, just to keep the lights on. You're counting every dollar, skipping that morning latte because gas prices are eating your paycheck alive. Meanwhile, somewhere in the sky, there's a $60 million government jet cutting through the clouds, and guess who's inside? Not some foreign dignitary, not the president on urgent state business. No, it's Kash Patel's girlfriend, Alexis Wilkins, getting the VIP treatment on your dime. But here's what nobody's telling you about this story. This isn't just about money, though we'll get to those jaw-dropping numbers. This isn't even just about corruption, though that's certainly part of it. This is about something much more dangerous, something that goes right to the heart of who we are as a nation. I've spent years watching politics from the inside and the outside, and I can tell you this. When the people in charge start thinking the rules don't apply to them, when they start treating government resources like their personal playground, we're not just dealing with bad behavior. We're dealing with the slow-motion collapse of everything we claim to stand for. The story broke like a thunderclap on a clear day. 1 minute, Kash Patel was the tough-talking FBI director, the guy who was supposed to clean house and restore integrity to the Bureau. The next minute, we're reading flight logs that read like a celebrity gossip column. Gulfstream to wrestling events. SWAT teams deployed not to take down terrorists, but to carry shopping bags at concerts. Picture the scene. Alexis Wilkins stepping off a government jet like she's walking the red carpet at Cannes. Meanwhile, somewhere in America, an FBI agent is sitting at his desk wondering why his overtime request got denied while elite tactical units are being used as personal valets. The cognitive dissonance is so thick you could cut it with a knife. And here's what makes it even more surreal. These aren't just any jets we're talking about. These are the same aircraft used to transport the Attorney General during national emergencies, the same planes that have carried critical intelligence across hostile territories. Now they're essentially functioning as an Uber for the romantically inclined. And the beautiful irony, this is happening under an administration that promised to drain the swamp. Instead, it looks like they've just installed a more expensive hot tub with better champagne service. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Stephen, maybe this is all just partisan attacks. Maybe this is the deep state trying to take down a reformer. And look, I've been around Washington long enough to know that political knives are always sharp. Hell, I've sharpened a few myself over the years. But here's the thing about facts. They're stubborn little bastards. They don't care about your party affiliation or your personal loyalty. Flight logs don't lie. Fuel receipts don't have political opinions. When a $60 million jet burns through more money in one trip than most families see in a year, that's not a deep state conspiracy. That's just math. Expensive, infuriating, taxpayer-funded math. And let me paint you a picture of what this actually looks like on the ground. While Alexis Wilkins is sipping champagne at 30,000 feet, there's a single mother in Detroit working double shifts just to pay her rent. There's a veteran in Ohio choosing between his medication and his groceries. There's a teacher in Kansas using her own money to buy supplies for her classroom because the school budget is stretched thinner than a politician's promise. These people, these real Americans, are the ones funding this aerial love affair. Their tax dollars are literally keeping this romance airborne. And the cruel joke? They probably couldn't afford a coach ticket to visit their own grandchildren. But let me tell you what really gets under my skin about this whole mess. It's not just the money, though. God knows that's outrageous enough. It's the arrogance. The sheer, breathtaking arrogance of thinking that you can use elite tactical units, men and women trained to face down armed terrorists, as your girlfriend's personal security detail. Think about what we're actually talking about here. These SWAT team members didn't just fall off a truck. They went through months, sometimes years of specialized training. They've studied hostage rescue scenarios, counterterrorism tactics, high-risk warrant executions. They've practiced breaching doors under live fire, defusing bombs with steady hands, making split-second decisions that mean the difference between life and death. And now they're standing outside a wrestling arena, making sure nobody bothers Alexis Wilkins while she takes selfies with the cast of Monday Night Raw. It's like using a Formula One race car to deliver pizza. Technically possible, but so wastefully stupid it makes your brain hurt. I've talked to former agents, people who've served their country with honor for decades, and they tell me the same thing. This isn't just inappropriate, it's demoralizing. When you take the most elite units in federal law enforcement and turn them into glorified babysitters for someone's romantic interest, you're not just wasting resources. You're telling every dedicated agent that their training, their sacrifice, their commitment to public safety matters less than one man's ego. Imagine being a SWAT team member right now. You've trained for years, you've missed birthdays and anniversaries to serve your country, you've put your life on the line to protect innocent people, and then your boss tells you to pack your bags because you're going to provide security at a Taylor Swift concert. Not because there's a credible threat, not because national security demands it, but because the director's girlfriend wants to feel important. How do you look yourself in the mirror after that? How do you explain to your family that instead of tracking down actual criminals, you spent the weekend making sure Alexis Wilkins had a good view of the wrestling ring? The real tragedy here isn't just the waste of money or even the abuse of power. It's what this does to the soul of an institution. The FBI is supposed to be our shield against those who would do us harm. When the person at the top treats it like his personal concierge service, it sends a message to every agent, every analyst, every person who works there. Your mission doesn't matter as much as my social calendar. And here's where it gets really interesting. Word is coming out of the White House that President Trump himself is getting frustrated with these headlines. Now think about that for a moment. This is a man who's never been shy about defending his people, even when they're clearly in the wrong, but apparently even Trump has limits when it comes to how much embarrassment he's willing to tolerate. Sources close to the administration are whispering that behind closed doors, the president is asking hard questions. Questions like, how did we end up with headlines about jet rides for girlfriends when we're supposed to be focusing on making America great again? Questions like, how do I explain to my supporters that we're fighting corruption while our own FBI director is allegedly living like a Russian oligarch? The beautiful irony is almost too perfect. Trump built his political brand on being the outsider, the guy who would shake up Washington, who would end the era of politicians getting rich while regular folks got screwed. And now he's dealing with a scandal that makes the old political establishment look like choir boys by comparison. But here's what really should scare you about all this. While Kash Patel was allegedly busy coordinating flight plans for his girlfriend, while SWAT teams were being redeployed from crime fighting to concert security, the real threats to our nation didn't take a vacation. Foreign spies didn't stop trying to steal our secrets. Cyber criminals didn't pause their attacks on our infrastructure. Terrorists didn't decide to take a break just because the FBI director was distracted. Every minute that elite law enforcement resources were being used for personal purposes was a minute they weren't being used to protect you and your family. Every dollar spent on luxury travel for Alexis Wilkins was a dollar not spent on investigating the people who actually want to hurt us. The cost of this scandal isn't just measured in money, though the financial numbers are staggering enough. Operating a Gulfstream jet costs thousands of dollars per hour. When you factor in fuel, maintenance, crew costs, and security protocols, a single trip can cost more than most Americans make in a year. Multiply that by however many personal trips we're talking about, and you're looking at a sum that could fund entire schools or fix crumbling bridges. But the real cost is in credibility. Every time a story like this breaks, it makes it a little bit harder for Americans to trust their government. It makes it easier for our enemies to point to us and say, look, they're no different than any other corrupt regime. They just have better marketing. The defense we keep hearing is predictable and tired. It's always the same script. This is a witch hunt. This is the deep state striking back. This is all about politics. But you know what's not political? Receipts. You know what doesn't have a party affiliation? Flight logs. You know what isn't a conspiracy theory? Basic arithmetic. When you add up the costs, when you look at the pattern of behavior, when you see how government resources designed to protect the American people are allegedly being used as a dating service for high-ranking officials, you don't need to be a partisan to be angry. You just need to be a taxpayer. The saddest part of all this is how predictable it's become. We've seen this movie so many times before. Powerful person thinks the rules don't apply to them. Powerful person gets caught. Powerful person claims they're the victim of a political witch hunt. Powerful person hopes the news cycle moves on to something else. But here's the thing, we don't have to let the news cycle move on. We don't have to accept that this is just how things work now. We can demand better. We can insist that the people who work for us actually remember who they work for. Because at the end of the day, that's what this is really about. It's about whether we're going to accept a system where your tax dollars fund the lifestyle of people who wouldn't give you the time of day if they passed you on the street. It's about whether we're going to tolerate leaders who think public service is just another way to get rich and live large. The choice is ours. We can shrug our shoulders and say, that's just politics. Or we can remember that in a democracy, the ultimate power belongs to the people. And if we use that power, if we demand accountability and transparency and basic human decency from our leaders, then maybe, just maybe, we can get back to being the country we always claimed to be. The story of Kash Patel and his girlfriend's government-funded jet rides is just beginning. How it ends depends on whether we're willing to care enough to demand that it actually ends with justice, not just another news cycle.